There's an ongoing bleep going on in the background there. Okay, we're live.
All right.
Good stuff. So live across the world.
Yes.
All right. Can't start looking at myself, right? So today we've picked on Purple Cow. Purple Cow.
Yeah.
By Seth Godin. Terrific book. Seth Godin, as most people would hopefully know, is one of the internet's foremost marketing experts. I'm not even sure if that's the title he'd use for himself nowadays, but he's certainly a thought leader and standout thinker on marketing, and particularly in the modern digital era.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would probably describe himself with multiple things, but obviously most people know him from the marketing perspective, and so on this podcast he will be a marketing expert.
Yeah, he's one of those people I'd love to sit down and have dinner with, because I think he'd had so much interesting to say.
I've actually been in a friend of mine organized a session where you had startups and Seth dialed in, and it was a small, nice, intimate setting in Lagos, and I think he was dialing from somewhere in the US, and we got to ask him questions, and he shared a lot of interesting thoughts and challenges and stuff that I thought was extremely helpful. So I enjoy, so I'm like you. If I could, every other month have dinner or coffee with Seth, that would be great.
Yeah, I suppose we should be saying having coffee with him, really, shouldn't we? I wonder who he'd like to have coffee with. That would be an interesting question.
What are you talking about? He would like to have coffee with us. There you have it.
Well, maybe we should ask him. There's something we could do. Oh, now that would
never know.
That could make the podcast take off, couldn't it? Yeah, the Purple Podcast.
You never know. Coffee with Seth. Yeah, thereabout. But I mean, Chris, you've read the book, and maybe you want to start off with some of your big ideas based on the book.
Yeah, what I found most focusing and most interesting, the whole idea of the Purple Cow. You pick the book up, and even the title, the cover page, is rotated 90 degrees, and he makes the point at several levels with the book about how being remarkable is what's needed in the modern economies for particularly product-based but also service-based marketing, and that if you're like everyone else, and if your target is the mass market, well, really, I think he makes 2 points. One is that that's not likely to be successful in the modern world, but it's also, to some extent, just not so much fun. And that's what the key I took from it. And he gives the example, the metaphor of, if you live in a city and you're driving around, you don't see many cows, but as you drive out of the city,
you live in.
Oh, this is true. Given, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, very true. Actually, I do have a farm that's a city farm that's about 3 or 4 miles away. But anyway, in most cities, in your average Western city, you don't see a lot of cows wandering about. But if you get in your car and you head out to the countryside, you might see a field with some cows in it, and they're interesting, and you see them. Then you see another field, and it's got more cows, and after a while none of those cows are interesting anymore because it's just become commonplace. But then you come across another field, and in this field there's a purple cow. You're going to sit up and take notice, because this is like, wow, that's different, that's remarkable. The previous 100 miles haven't been that remarkable in terms of cows, but now we've got the purple one. It's really suddenly going to make you sit up and take notice. And that's the central message from the book. And he invites us to imagine our products, or to market our products, for the interest of those people who will be the innovators and the early adopters. And we're used to seeing that normal distribution curve of the early adopters, the what's the middle section called? I'll remind myself. The early and late majority, and then the laggards. But his when he talks about the innovators, and the sneezers, as you call them, they're the people who will not only like your product, but they like to talk about your product because it's new, it's interesting, it's innovation. And there are people who do like to be on the leading edge, or even the bleeding edge of innovation, and they will seek out things that no one else has started to adopt yet. And they part of their personal image and part of what they believe about themselves is that they, as an innovator, as someone who spots a new trend or spots a new product or service and seeks it out to use it right from the start. So yeah.
Okay, no, I mean, look, and I think that's fascinating. And for me, I like that you practiced, or in the book, he practiced exactly what he was preaching. Because if you go into the bookstore and you see a purple-looking book, you will stop to look at what it is. And then when you see the title that says "Purple Cow," you kind of want to look inside, like, okay, what's this about? And and in a world where everyone is distracted, right? That's what businesses are looking for, right? You want someone to stop and take a look at the product, because then they can find out, the benefits of what your products, what your products have to offer. So I like, I like this, the cover and the title of the book. And I was just, still on that point, a lot of these concepts are quite easy to say. Okay, go and create a purple cow, any tips on how I get to do that? Because it's not, because if it was very easy to do, I guess everybody would be doing it, right? There'll be loads of purple cows everywhere. But then, if everyone was doing purple cows, they would not be remarkable anymore.
Well, that's the game, isn't it? And it's what's the expression? Arms race, isn't it? It becomes an arms race to constantly try and reinvent and be remarkable. He does make the point also in the book and in some of his other writings that as an entrepreneur or as a business person or as an innovator, if your area is that part of inventing new products, then you want to keep doing that. You don't necessarily want to then move from this innovation space, which is where you experience your joy in work, and end up having to do the sort of mature product marketing and sales stuff for that product 5 years down the line. You really want to extract yourself from that so that you can stay with your strengths, with your skills, as an inventor, as an innovator, as a designer. If those are a way you experience your greatest ability to contribute, then you want to keep doing that. So by that token, it's really important to surround yourself with people who can take on the product once you've done it and move it through its maturity cycle to the point where at some point no one's interested in that product anymore and it's done. We can look at almost any major product and see that kind of scale. We look at video, right? Look at video recording, and it went from VHS and Betamax. Betamax fell by the way, even though it's the better standard, because marketing took the other one. It took VHS through it, but then even you can't give videotapes away now. You'd have to pay someone to take them off your hands, almost, because they're bulky, they're slow, they wear out, and we have DVDs anyway, so why would we want video anymore? But nowadays, charity shops are full of DVDs being sold off for £1 each, or less, 5 for £3 or something, because we've got streaming, and as the disruptive technology of of wireless and wired and wireless internet now got to the point that why would you even want to own movies on DVD or on any storage medium, because you've now got a storage problem. So all of these technologies move on; they've moved through cycles, and it becomes time to generate the next unique, remarkable, as he says here, go
Yeah.
backwards,
I mean,
come up with the next remarkable innovation.
yeah, I mean, I mean, sorry to interrupt you, but as you were saying that, I was like, okay, so that's so easy to say when we're looking at technology, right? Looking at technology in tech space, everyone's kind of used to that. Everyone understands that you need to keep innovating and all of that stuff. They understand that language. But if you're talking about a new, a different kind of business, like, I mean, a coffee shop, a small business that they don't have the capacity to have loads of people testing different things out, trying which one will work and all of that stuff. First, do you think that this kind of thinking or this kind of approach is useful to them? And if you think that, how can they bring it into their business?
I think, well, at the simplest level, give all the key players in your business a copy of the book. It doesn't take long to read, so it's and then get them thinking about what in their domain, in their individual personal domains of what they do day to day, what can they do to improve it? It's a sort of continual improvement approach. But beyond that, what would make what they're doing completely remarkable? I think it's a slightly difficult question in a way, because if you are an entrepreneur and an innovator, you tend to be on the lookout for things that you think, oh, that could be really interesting. That's there's something there's a remarkable possibility in X, right?
Right.
If your mental landscape is not a growth mindset, and if your work is fairly repetitive, and that's the sort of thing that you like, then you're probably not going to be the ideal candidate for trying to innovate something which is working perfectly well for you, even if it could be made better. If it works well for you and your mindset around it is that, no, it works, I don't need to change this, I'm happy with how it's going, then the message of Purple Cow isn't really for that kind of person necessarily. So I think if you're trying to do a transformation in a business because you feel the need to make your business more remarkable or make the products and services you produce more remarkable, then I think you have to be a little bit selective about who you're asking to invest their energy, their time, their intelligence in seeking the remarkable in that space, in that business. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, but there was something you said as you started your train of thoughts, which was around you used the word continuous improvement, and in the area that you work, can you make whatever it is you're doing remarkable? And then I was thinking, okay, maybe as a business owner, the way to so there are several customers in your business, right? There is the ultimate customer, who is the reason why you're a business, and then there are all the various, the customer for accounting, all of that stuff, and I was thinking to myself, maybe some of these ideas, obviously in a put in some kind of a framework, could be useful as a tool in continuous improvement in your product. So it's not necessarily about inventing something new, but it's about maybe just asking that question around, what does remarkable mean in this space where we work? Then how could we be remarkable at that? And that could literally be, maybe we need to be able to process invoices in 2 days, not a week. And how can you do that? I'm just throwing that idea out there that,
Yeah.
if we broaden what Seth is talking about to not just, creating a marketing product, but across the entire business.
Yeah, there's a key phrase from the book. I may not be able to quote it verbatim, but it's along the lines of he through the concept of Purple Cow. Godin is urging us almost challenging us to seek out new ways to surprise and exceed customer expectations. I think that was the term you used. Surprise and exceed customer expectations. So not all, as it were, purple cow thinking is against blue sky thinking. I don't know if that's a term in the book, purple cow thinking. It's necessarily about a brand new product, but I think it is about how do you create experiences that really stand out? Because I mean, a product in itself might stand out, but only temporarily. I have something on my desk here, which is I think is quite a remarkable product. It's actually a what we might call a clutch pencil. It's basically a graphite. It's an artist's graphite writing pencil. So it takes solid graphite in what is a really quite well designed package that holds this thing, and it feels good to pick it up and go and sketch and draw with it. So it has its own way of inspiring you. And I think in the same way we can think about but on its own, it's an object that I use to do a job. But what is it about that experience that becomes memorable? The Maya Angelou phrase, isn't it? People won't remember what you say, but they'll remember how they felt when you said it. And I think it's something similar with really remarkable products. Is you might not always completely remember the exact detail of the product, but you remember how you felt when you were using it, or how it changed something in what you do. Some of the tools I use are fairly they're not professional tools. I like to, as you know, upcycle things and rebuild things and repair things, and occasionally I'll be cutting chunks of wood up and so whatever to go and make something, and it's becoming really challenging to do it, and you feel this frustration when the tool isn't working properly. And when I get the opportunity to replace it with something of better quality, my experience of using that and my experience of doing that exercise, your heart sings. You feel better about it because something was easier, and it maybe cost you a little more to invest in that, but it became easier. And that actually resonates with the book we talked about a week or two ago. The one thing, what's going to make things easier or unnecessary. Let's take a saw. If your saw has a really good blade in it and it makes cutting easier, then you will cut things less often. You will need to change your blade less often because you're dealing with something of good quality. So I think you invest in the best tools you can afford, and then the job of the person making and selling those tools is to make that experience as remarkable as possible.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. For me, the word that I just remembered when I went through the book is reinvention. So I'm thinking, for small businesses, we just need to be thinking from a perspective of not just continuous improvement, but continuous reinvention. I mean, are there ways to look at your processes and see ways to do them better and faster that would allow you to be remarkable to your customer, either because you're delivering the product faster, or you're delivering it cheaper, or you're delivering a much, much better experience while improving your bottom line, as a business, so that you remain very sustainable. I mean, look, it's a very, if you're listening or watching and you haven't read the book, it's a very quick read. It's full of a lot of stuff. I'm a Seth Godin fan, so I'm always on his blog, so maybe I'm biased, but I think it's a fantastic book, and I think every business owner should get a copy and maybe even give it to all your people. And like Chris said, the purple cow thinking, that's a thing now, isn't it?
I mean, I think it's worth saying that Seth really does practice what he preaches. I mean, he turns out a book, not great tomes, but he thoughtful, digestible content in the form of books and the blog, of course. But the blog, I think he often turns the blog into a book or vice versa. Another book of his, Tribes, it really resonates. I mean, I think he's a great. There's a what's that book called? Great Little Companies, I think it's called, something like that. The idea that to be successful, you don't have to be massive. You don't have to be $1 billion company necessarily to make a difference in people's lives and to be successful. You can do it in smaller companies. His own companies tends to be really small because he likes that intimacy and that ability to know what's going on in the going on in the business and being able to work it. Tribes is like that. It's the idea that you're not after everybody, you're after 1,000 raving fans, and that you can create a really good business out of that. So
yeah, I mean, we should find some time to talk about that, but I've got to read the book first though, so
no, just before we wrap up fully, I mean, what can you think of any businesses that really stand out like a purple cow? What can you think of when you think of remarkable experiences that you have in the business space? Who stands out for you?
That's an interesting question.
I mean, there's some notable contenders, I think, on the.
I'm an Apple fan, for instance. So, I mean, I think maybe they haven't done anything remarkable or recent, but I find the products. Sometimes I find the design of the boxes where the packaging for the products. Sometimes not sometimes, all the time, I find them remarkable to the point that I always keep them. And it's my, it's the other people in the house who are like, listen, you are taking up space. Can we can we get rid of this stuff? Because I'm like, you can't throw that away. I mean, that's something that I think is remarkable. I mean, and it's interesting because no one would think to say, the packaging, like, I want to know what the phone does, right? But the packaging, and that for me is something I find remarkable. I don't know if it was a Samsung phone I came across, and the phone just took beautiful pictures, like it was so clear, it was everything, and I thought, that's fantastic. But then I thought, nah, man, I'm an iPhone person. Not getting me Samsung, and I think Apple comes to mind. I think who can I think about? Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to think about that and come back to you and some other people. But I think Apple comes to mind. I just love the way they, everything is well thought out. The experience is thought about and stuff like that. I think for any business, especially small businesses, because it's very easy for a small business to say we don't have resources, therefore, we can't do any of that stuff. But I think it's actually just being intentional about wanting to be remarkable, no matter what it is that you do. You can create that experience for people. So yeah, I'm gonna pick the easy one, Apple.
Yeah, I think I remember reading somewhere or listening to someone talking about it. There was Steve Jobs was absolutely obsessive about the quality of the customer experience, and that's exactly the sort of thing that makes it so remarkable. Even down in the early days when the iPod was first coming out, and he insisted that they were all fully charged before they were packaged, so that when the customer got them out of the box, they were ready to go. And up until that time, things were shipped without batteries, or the battery, there was always this message they'd charge fully overnight before first use and stuff like that. He transformed the customer experience by insisting that it had to be charged and fully ready out of the box. Even the experience of opening the box, and as the vacuum in the box holds the bottom as it slowly reveals itself, This
Yeah.
was actually part of the design ethos that went into it, and then the commitment to that experience, which is utterly remarkable. I mean, the obsession with
Yeah.
it was, but that's one of the things that has driven the success of Apple. I think something that's a transformative experience. Microsoft were known for the appallingness of their customer service for years. You know, you was thought that if you needed anything from Microsoft, well, forget it. You know, you just had to keep trying yourself, or talk to the people that had worked it out or knew before you could have your own, you know, fix your problem. And when Satya Nadella took over, he saw the need to transform that experience, and successfully, at least the last time I had any contact with them, really did. I could go to the customer support at Microsoft and I'd get what I needed, and I didn't have to go through endless paywalls to get it. I
Yeah.
got what I needed, and that made a massive difference for me in transforming um, my my opinion and
Yeah.
my willingness to recommend a Microsoft product. They do make great products. They're bloated, but they are quality products. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I like them because of the way they reinvented themselves. Because at one point, you could have looked at Microsoft and said, okay, they're not going to be around after a while. But right now, when you think of the future, Microsoft is part of that future. So that in itself is a remarkable thing.
and what are they doing now? Well, I mean, something that stands out for me as a remarkable thing, and I think it was more remarkable when it first came out about a year ago, was they're saying that they were going, and I'd love to see the full audit on this. So, but they're innocent until proven guilty. Is that they're going to go? They've already gone carbon neutral on their entire business, but they're aiming to go zero carbon historically. So they're carbon negative now, to the point at which they're, as it were, backing up their carbon neutrality as far as they can go. I mean, it's symbolic. It's not real because you can't do something in the past, but they're trying to account for all their carbon production from when the company was first created. Now, I think that's the impossible thing to do, but it's a great aspiration, and it is a remarkable thing to come forward and say, this is what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. I think that they're trying to do that, and just on that transformation bit of what Microsoft is doing. If you're a small business listening and you're thinking of where to introduce this idea of remarkable thinking, you could look at maybe the frequent customer complaints that you get, and maybe spend some time with your team and say, you know what, just like Microsoft was able to, turn Chris into an evangelist. How can you use the purple cow thinking to transform that bit part of your business? Because I think oftentimes, you get all this. Just look at the complaint list. Pick one and say, you know what, we're going to use this thing that people complain about as a reference point for creating something, a remarkable experience that people will start to use that to bring new customers to our business. That's something you could do as a business, and I'll throw that challenge out there. And if you do it and it works, I think we'd love to have you on the podcast and talk about how you apply the purple cow thinking to tell you how they're part of your business.
I'll move to that.
Yeah. Excellent.
Okay, well, we probably best wrap it up for today. And
Yes.
we'll see you all at the next one in hopefully a week's time. We will be back on with our next insights from another remarkable book.
Absolutely. And, bye from Abuja.
See you next time.